If we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
Hello and welcome to Pet Watch, a program about the Williamson County Animal Center. Today my guest is Laura Chavarria. Hi Laura.
Good morning.
She's the director at the shelter, and today we'll be talking about an important topic, rabies. Now Laura, most people think rabies is something that we don't need to worry about anymore, that maybe our dogs get a shot for once a year, but we really need more information about it, because let's catch people up on a very timely situation that just happened in our county. Tell us about a recent rabid animal case and how it came about.
Sure. We average about one positive rabies case a year in Williamson County. So right now we are in April, and we've had 2 positive rabies cases this year. So that's a little alarming. The most recent case was last week. We had a dog, 2 dogs actually, that attacked a skunk that was out in the middle of the day. They injured it. We went out to trap it, and we sent it off for testing, and it came back as positive. So definitely alarming. The dogs currently are in a quarantine environment where they only go outside to go to the bathroom. They're being observed for abnormal behavior, but right now they're acting normal, and we're just precautioning everybody to make sure that they're getting their animals vaccinated and that they refrain from interacting with wildlife.
Okay, I encourage our viewers to remember this is from skunk to dog, and then it could possibly proceed to humans, and we'll get more into that in a moment. But the typical scenario is that a vaccinated domestic animal like a cat or dog encounters a wildlife animal with rabies.
Correct.
Let's talk a little about what rabies is. It is a virus, right, that is present in certain wildlife.
Correct.
And it's my understanding that historically it started in bats, and then it started in other animals. What is in this county or in this country? Let's get the country in general. What are the major wildlife animals that we would find rabies in?
Sure. It's actually can be carried in any warm-blooded animal, but the most common are skunks, possums, raccoons, bats, like you mentioned. Most common in Tennessee is skunks, and then a close second is raccoons.
Okay, in our general area, I think I looked at a chart from the Center for Disease Control, which actually has a real interest in controlling rabies in the world population of humans. And it is prevalent in Africa and Asia in the human population because they don't vaccinate their domestic pets. But in the United States, it's rare because we, as I understand it, since the mid-20th century, about 1948, someone developed a vaccine for dogs. Now, what does the state law in Tennessee require a dog and cat owner to do?
State law requires that any animal, dog, cat, or ferret, over the age of 12 weeks is vaccinated for rabies, and that's annually. There is a 3-year vaccine, but the first shot that they have to get is a 1-year rabies, and then after that they are eligible for the 3-year vaccination.
And the best thing to do is when you're getting your annual checkup with your veterinarian for your cat or dog, that you be sure that they're current, and your veterinarian will do that. There are also some public clinics at a reduced price, which we'll go over later. The rabies virus is classified as zoonotic disease. What does zoonotic mean?
Zoonotic means that it's a virus that's common in animals but could be transferred to a human. So something that's very common is Lyme disease, which is common with animals but could be transferred to humans.
Okay.
Rocky Mountain spotted fever is another one. So there's a lot of examples. Salmonella is another one that comes from chickens and can be passed on to us. So it's something that we want to be careful with.
Even mosquito-borne diseases like West Nile and malaria. Anything an animal carries that could be transmitted to humans is called zoonotic. So that was a term I wasn't familiar with, but in the veterinary world, it's a common term. Rabies has the highest fatality rate of all those illnesses we just talked about. What does rabies do when it attacks a dog or cat's body? What happens?
When the virus attacks, it's actually passed through saliva. So let's say hypothetically from last week's encounter, the skunk was positive, and when the dogs encountered the skunk, it's passed through saliva and it causes the brain to swell. So that's an issue, and then it's actually fatal. So there's no curing. If these dogs start showing signs of having the virus, they would unfortunately have to be euthanized because it is fatal.
And if they had been vaccinated, their chances are
greater.
minuscule that they will even contract it.
Right, and
which is the
they
purpose.
Were current. Yeah,
right,
so,
and they were current, so we're not real concerned about them. So we can't control the wildlife, and in Middle Tennessee, our main threat for rabies is the skunk. And the rest of the southern United States and up through Appalachia, it's the raccoon. And in some places out in other areas in the Northwest, it's the fox. So it's very regional, but it is important for people to know that here it is the skunk. So what would a skunk look like or behave like if it might be infected? Because we see a lot of properties around here, both in subdivisions and rural properties, where we all smell a skunk. We see a skunk that might have been hit by a vehicle in the road, so we know they're there. We know they're having babies, and we know we can't really control that population. What is a rabid skunk? What kind of behaviors would it exhibit?
A lot of these animals, bats, skunks, raccoons, are nocturnal. So one of the major signs if something's wrong, not necessarily rabies, but could be distemper, is if they're out during the day. So that's the first sign. If you see one of these nocturnal animals out, that's the first sign. And then the second one is behavior differences. So either being super friendly, wanting to interact with your family, wanting to interact with your pets, or on the other end of the spectrum, being super aggressive, charging at you. If there's any issues, contact us immediately so that we can try to resolve it.
Now, the property owner that had the rabid skunk on her property, what did she see that day? She heard her dogs barking.
She did. She heard the dogs barking. The skunk was behind her barn. She has a large amount of property, and it was out during the day. The dogs went to see what was going on, and then they got into a tussle with the skunk. So it was out during the day, but she didn't see much of the behavior issues besides that.
In a normal skunk dog encounter, the dog ends up on the losing end with the skunk spraying them. So the fact that the skunk engaged in a fight would be odd. And second, that it was confronting dogs in the middle of the day. So there were lots of little things that add together. And then as I watched her explain it in a video, she said the skunk was kind of walking in circles and didn't look like it had all of its faculties, so to speak. In other words, when you can observe a skunk that long and see that many things, something is amiss. Would you agree that?
Yeah, wobbly, acting drunk. Like I said, two ends of the spectrum, either super friendly and trying to engage, or super aggressive, charging at animals.
Right, and I think many of our images of rabies relate to a rabid dog in a movie, which prior to 1950, when I mentioned that the vaccine became widely available, that's where it was. And it was not uncommon to see a rabid dog, what they called foaming at the mouth, or a lot of saliva coming out, which is the end stage of rabies.
Shedding of the virus.
Right, of the virus. So those animals, there's no cure, and that was a concern from the U.S. population until that time. When you talk about wildlife, we do have a lot of wildlife encounters in Williamson County because we are moving into their territory, as you like to say. I heard you explaining that the other day. And that's true for many different animals. We have lots of coyote sightings. There's no rabies in the coyote population that we know of here, but what can people do to avoid an encounter with wildlife, which is never a good idea, rabies or not? It is a wild animal, and it does not understand why people are in its territory and why they have food in their garbage cans or whatever. So what are some simple things that homeowners can do, or property owners?
The first thing is to vaccinate your animals, obviously domestic animals. The second thing is to not leave food outside that attracts wildlife. So like you mentioned, trash, or if you have free roaming cats and you feed them, make sure you pull the food in at night because that food will attract coyotes, raccoons, skunks. And if you see wildlife, to refrain from interacting with them. and to keep your family and your pets under supervision at all times. So if you have an outdoor pet, try to bring them in, especially at night, because you don't want them to interact. And I know Tennessee Wildlife is now vaccinating wildlife by putting the vaccine in their food. So that's something that they're trying to do to help reduce the amount of rabies in wildlife. Yeah, I just read that.
Wow. Okay, so people are working on how do we control this in the wildlife population as well as in domestic animals. Well, skunks are the major carrier, so let's go back one more time and talk about, you may say, well, I've never seen a skunk on my property, and I don't think my dogs always stay in the house, so they don't need to be, or my cats, well, let's mention cats then before I get into that. Many people think that cats can't get rabies.
They can.
I would beg to differ because I looked up the statistics and there were 303 rabid cats in Tennessee last year reported, and there were 69 rabid dogs. So there are a lot more cats with rabies. And the state law does require the same thing for cats
It does.
that it does for dogs. And the major mistake a cat owner can make is not taking their cat in for an annual exam because they think it can't catch anything. It always stays in the house. And I can't tell you how many cats we've had. My cat escaped. It's been out for 3 days. Well, during that time, you do not know what your cat comes in contact with. And you talked about nocturnal. We have bats in all 50 states. They're like all these species of bats. They're not my favorite animal, but I'm aware that they're there even though I never see them. A bat can come down and bite your cat. Then you find your cat and go, get back in the house. Why did you escape?
And then they're bringing rabies into your house.
And you don't know your cat's been bitten, or because bats dive down and do that. So, yeah, you would know if your cat tussled with a skunk, but you might not a raccoon or a bat or some other animal. So, for a very small fee, you can do a whole lot of prevention of rabies, which is a totally preventable disease.
The vaccination is cheap. You know, we're going to have clinics out there to help have it in all the communities. Every edge of Williamson County, hopefully we'll have that covered, and people can come get a vaccine for $10. It's cheap, it's quick, it's easy, and it just adds that additional safeguard to keep your pets and you safe.
What are the shelters? What is the shelter's role if a person sees wildlife acting strangely? What is your procedure? With the skunk, what happened the other day?
If a member of the public in Williamson County sees wildlife acting weirdly out of the normal, we encourage them to call us. We'll ask a series of questions to see what you're observing, and then usually we'll send out an officer to investigate further and hopefully either trap the animal and bring it in so that we can test it.
And where do you send the animal for testing? Who's responsible for that?
We send it to the state lab in Nashville, so just a hop, skip, and a jump over.
Okay. And I think our incident occurred on a Friday, and we knew by Monday morning. So it's very timely, the testing. And isn't that because rabies can go...
Sensitive.
It's time sensitive, and it's sometimes there's no behavior sometimes to indicate that an animal has contracted rabies until they're in the final stages of the weird behavior and the saliva. That's end stage, and that's contagious time for the person or animal it comes in contact with.
Correct, and that's why if there's any type of bite, whether it's a domestic animal that's bitten a human or wildlife that's bitten a domestic animal, there's a 10-day quarantine period where we can observe the animal. Most times we do it in their home. We have the owner sign a piece of paper that says, I agree to observe my animal for 10 days. I won't take it to a public dog park. I won't take it to PetSmart. That way we can see if they start shedding the virus and start showing behavior signs.
And that's even if they've been vaccinated.
Correct.
Right. So if my dog bites my friend and my dog's up to date on its vaccinations, you still keep a report and you still ask and follow up with the dog's behavior or the cat's behavior and the person who was bitten. Okay.
Correct. And then after that 10-day period, the owner has to take it to a vet to do a wellness check and then do a booster of the rabies vaccine.
Because if it were present in that animal, it would manifest within 10 days.
Correct. The lifespan is the 10 days to see the behavior sign.
Wow. So
Very
it's quick
sensitive.
and it attacks the brain. I think it's a form of encephalitis, which people are it goes to the brain, and then it does a peculiar thing with the salivary glands.
That's why you see the foaming.
Right, and I think it makes them, the infected animal, crave water or fear water, which is fear water. That, and it used to be called hydrophobia, I think, that where that came from. My most vivid memory is in the movie To Kill a Mockingbird, where Atticus has to take down the rabid dog, and everybody scurries into their house because it was pre-1950, and it was something you did not approach.
And they didn't know about vaccines.
Yeah, they didn't know about it. They didn't have it for the animal, so it was truly, absolutely a contagious thing that was walking down the middle of the street, which cast fear into everybody in town, locked and went inside, and until they took care of it. But anyway, I think that's changed, and I hope people's perceptions of that have changed. Let's talk for a moment about what happens if a person is severely bitten or bitten at all by an animal. And you said there was an observation period for if the animal's up to date on its vaccinations, the person's going to be okay. Is that true? Or do you recommend that they still see a physician?
We don't want to give any type of healthcare advice.
Right.
I would say to visit your doctor. It is state law that all the bites are recorded to our agency if the skin is broken. So they report it to us, we take a bite case, and then we encourage them to seek medical treatment. It's their decision. And then the animal, we make contact with the owner and say, look, you have a 10-day home quarantine observation period. It's state law. We'll touch base with you at the end of the 10 days to make sure that the animal's alive and well, and then they have to take it to their vet to make sure it is alive and well, and then to get reboosted for rabies.
And I had a little personal experience with this when my husband was bitten by a dog while he was riding his bike. And the person who owned the dog could not produce it immediately that day, the medical record showing the dog had been vaccinated. And we had to go to the emergency room because stitches were needed. So the doctor there erred on the side of caution, and he said, look, it's not that hard. I can fix you, but we have a small window, and I'm going to treat you with a known treatment, which is a couple of shots. And it's not the old-fashioned, horrendous shots in the stomach that they did earlier in earlier years, but it's just in the arm, and it's like, and he just said, treat it. The doctor said nobody's ever survived rabies, to his knowledge, and if you can't tell me this dog's been vaccinated, unfortunately, you're going to need a little medical care. But it wasn't bad, and that's really a human being's best resort, is to go to a medical professional and follow the protocol.
And you brought up another good point. Dog owners and cat owners should always have their rabies certificate or their medical information for their pet on hand, just in case something happens. So I know at home we have a drawer of important documents, and that's where all my pet's medical information is. So make sure you have it on hand.
And the rabies tag is given to you at any rabies vaccination in the state of Tennessee. All the vets have it, all the rabies clinics have it. So that number on that tag, it may say a number and then 2014.
The year.
And we would look it up in a master system and say, well, that was May of 2014, so that one's still good. It's until this 2015. So that little tag can make a lot of difference. So I would urge viewers, wouldn't you, don't put that tag in the drawer.
Yep, put it on the collar.
Put it on the collar, because it also gives information to find the owner of that dog if that dog was ever to get out.
Yeah, we took in 2 dogs yesterday that were wearing their tags. They weren't microchipped, but we were able to relocate or reunite them with their owners because of those tags.
Oh, it's not the ideal way, but it is a way that to cover both the rabies requirement and you don't have to worry if that dog...
If they get loose.
Right, if they get loose. That's interesting. And also, ferrets have to be vaccinated
They
too.
do.
If anybody out there has a ferret, for some reason, the Tennessee law is cats, dogs, and ferrets. I guess they're the most domesticated, and they would be inside the home most often.
Correct.
Right. What is your advice to people about rabies?
I think that people need to know, A, to vaccinate their animals, and when in doubt, seek medical treatment if there's any bite, and to communicate it to us. A lot of people call us for advice. We are at the shelter from 8 to 6. Call us if you have any questions about wildlife acting differently. if you have a question just about rabies in general, we're there to be a resource. So please call us.
I want to get back to bats for just a second. I do remember one day a man brought a bat into the shelter in a plastic bag.
A little baby bat.
Yeah. What is your advice for people who find wildlife either severely injured or dead in their yard?
Call us before you try to handle it. This person was comfortable handling with it. His wife actually woke up in bed and it was underneath her pillow.
A bat?
A bat.
Oh,
And it was
my.
a little baby bat. So he brought it to us. We sent it off for testing and it wasn't positive for rabies. But if you see any type of wildlife, please call us because it's our expertise. And if we can't handle it, we will then defer you to Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency. But if you're not comfortable handling it, call us. Please don't be handling wildlife.
Wow. I didn't know it was under her pillow.
It was under her pillow. The tooth fairy
That'll
left her a
wake
gift.
you up. Not a tooth fairy incident for sure. Well, I think it's so important for people to realize that the reason they've never heard of an animal having rabies is because of the shot. It's kind of like eliminating polio in the human population. The reason we don't see it is because medical science has given us a way to keep from getting it.
Yes, in 60 years. I mean, it used to be very common in domestic animals, and then we've seen it just to be not common.
And it might be hard for people to understand, but we recently had a hoarding situation of some dogs in this county where there were 12 to 15 dogs that had never been inoculated against rabies. That's sort of inexcusable in today's world.
It is.
People do get overwhelmed, and we are sympathetic to that, but it's amazing that none of those animals tested positive when they were confiscated, and now they've all gotten new homes and proper medical care. But believe it or not, there are people that take in animals too quickly and without a great deal of thought. So that's one of the things I like best about our shelter is we do extensive interviews, conversations, even site visits for people to make sure that our animals are going to an environment where the person can afford proper medical care. We do want to thank you for all your insight today on rabies virus and how it affects us. And remember, it does affect the people in your family. If your pets aren't vaccinated, then they could transmit it to the people in your family, and you don't want that because you would have to be treated and get a series of shots. I thank you for all your advice, and I hope none of our viewers will ever handle wild animals, or they'll just call the experts.
Yes.
That's
Give us a call.
790-5590. I want to highlight some events that we're having in the month of April. On April 5th, Saturday, we'll be at the Hometown Pet Store in Franklin on Highway 96 with dog adoptions. That store already has some of our cats there, and it's Cozy Cat Motel, they call it, in the wall, and they carry our cats for adoption every day, and then we come on some Saturdays and bring our dogs. So we'll be there the 5th from 11 to 3 at Hometown Pet. It's in the shopping center with the new Kroger on Highway 96. Then on April 25th and 26th, we'll be at the Main Street Festival with the rest of you. It's a huge festival in downtown Franklin. We will be at 5 Points in front of the County Archives building with our mobile unit with dogs and cats for adoption. And I want to highlight that our April promotion is It's Raining Cats and Dogs. It's April showers at the shelter, and we're offering $20 off all regular adoption fees. It is kitten and puppy season. We are starting to see already litters of both, and it will be raining cats and dogs and kittens and puppies. So this is the time of year, if you are committed to raising a kitten or puppy, which is completely different than an adult animal, and your family feels ready for that, we will have puppies and kittens for you to adopt during April and May at the shelter. We don't have them year-round because it is kind of a seasonal thing, but we do know we have several litters that will be available about the first week of May. You can call us for more information on that. The shelter is located at 106 Claude Yates Drive, right next to Franklin High School. And if you want to come by, we're open from 10 to 6 Monday through Friday, and 11 to 3 on Saturday. I want to mention our spring rabies clinics. We have a number of local veterinarians that volunteer each year to conduct community rabies clinics. Most of them are at our local schools. We try to spread them out geographically across the whole county so everyone has an equal opportunity to get to one of these locations and get a low-cost rabies vaccine. Many people do this every year. Spring is the best time. Then you always remember it. You always go to one of our April clinics, and if that's what you prefer, we just want you to get the rabies shot. They're only $10. I urge you to bring cash. That makes it go a little faster. It has to be a cash or a check. We cannot take a credit card at any of these locations. And the veterinary staff from different clinics comes and sets up a table and has a receipt book and all the tags that they will need for all the animals they're going to vaccinate that day. They only give the rabies vaccination. You can bring them in the car, in the bed of the truck, but keep them on a leash if you would, and then you just line up and the veterinary staff gives the shots to the dogs. And cats seem to be in carriers. Cats are welcome. And we've even had to go to a car and give a cat a vaccination before, which is fine. These are very casual and homey atmosphere, and you'll know the veterinarians. They'll be from your area, and we so appreciate their participation in both the spring and the fall. Most of our clinics are in April, and then we do have them again in the fall and October, but a much smaller scale. The April clinics will be on Saturdays. They're all on Saturday from 1 to 3, and they're all $10, so it's easy to remember. Here are the locations. On April 4th, College Grove Elementary, Fairview Elementary, Sunset Elementary, Grassland Elementary, Trinity Elementary, and Bethesda Deli and Market. Then on April 11th, Centennial High School, Lipscomb Elementary, Hunters Bend Elementary, Hillsboro Middle, Longview Elementary, and Winstead Elementary. Then on April 18th, the new Nolensville Elementary School, Chapman's Retreat Elementary School, Franklin High School, Scales Elementary, Page Middle, Westwood Elementary, and Crockett Elementary. Then on the last Saturday in April, the 25th, we'll be at Edmondson Elementary, Brentwood Middle, Oakview Elementary, Clovercroft Elementary, Independence High, and Fox Grocery in Leapers Fork. Laura, I think our residents appreciate the fact that we are so conscious about keeping our animals and our families safe. And I know that you would urge them all to come and turn out for $10. They can prevent a world of hurt for themselves and their families and their pets.
Yes, and if they can't make any of those clinics, give us a call. We can schedule them to come into the shelter all year round for the same amount.
Okay, so if anybody needs the $10 shot and would like to get it, they can contact the shelter at 790-5590. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I hope all of you are more educated now about rabies and that you understand the importance of having your animal vaccinated. So please obey the state law and protect everyone in our county by complying with it. I hope to see you next time on Pet Watch.
If we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
It may come as no surprise that when the economy is in decline, fraud is on the rise.
You have people who have been successful for the last 10 years, so they got a little something put away. Now, they took their expense account, they cut their overtime, so now they're looking to increase their earning potential. Business opportunities can boom in a recession and in a downturn of the economy.
Nobody in business is going to give you your money back if your business fails.
You never saw me in your life. You saw a commercial on TV, you got on the phone with me, you spoke to me for 10 seconds, I gave you some names to call, and I gave you some things to look up, and you called me back 3 days later, and you wrote me a check for $50,000. Does that sound a little screwed up?
People want to believe that there is some opportunity that they can invest in that will guarantee that they will have financial success. There is no such thing. There just is no sure deal. None.
The best advice I could give to anybody who's looking to purchase a business opportunity or purchase any investment over the phone is fast no's and slow yeses. Period, the end. Fast no's and slow yeses.